Dust motes danced in the weak shafts of sunlight that pierced the gloom of the old mansion. Mac, a solitary figure amidst the cavernous rooms and echoing silence, wandered through the decaying grandeur. Floorboards groaned beneath his tread. Cobwebs clung to the once ornate chandeliers. The air hung heavy with the scent of dampness and decay, a testament to years of neglect. Mac had bought the old house on a whim, seeking solace and a retreat from the world. What he found was isolation and something else, something ancient and unsettling that whispered through the empty halls. It was then that Mac first noticed the clock. It stood in a shadowy alcove at the end of a long, deserted hallway. A grand old grandfather clock, its once gleaming mahogany case now dulled with dust and neglect. Intricate carvings adorned its surface, depicting scenes of a forgotten time. Yet it was the clock face that drew Mac's attention, held him captive in its silent, unwavering gaze. The hands of the clock were frozen at the stroke of 3 o'clock in the morning. He ran a hand across its cold, smooth surface, the wood worn by the passage of time. The clock face, framed by tarnished golden trim, was cracked, a spiderweb of age and neglect. Yet beneath the grime, a hint of former beauty remained. The pale, moonlight glow of the clock face seemed to pulse faintly in the gathering darkness. The witching hour, the thought drifted unbidden into Mac's mind. He resolved to fix it. Days turned into weeks, and the clock became an obsession. Mac would spend hours in the dusty library, poring over ancient texts, searching for any mention of the clock or its history. He learned of haunted clocks, of timepieces imbued with malevolent spirits, of the devil's hour and the terrors it held. He would tinker with the clock's intricate mechanism, attempting to coax it back to life. But the clock remained stubbornly resistant, its hands refusing to budge. It was during one such attempt that Mac first heard the footsteps. Mac froze, his heart pounding in his chest. He strained to listen, every nerve on high alert. The footsteps stopped outside the library door. He held his breath, waiting, dreading what lay beyond that oaken barrier. Silence. Then the soft click of a door handle turning. Mac's blood ran cold. He grabbed the heavy silver candlestick holder from the desk, his only weapon. The door creaked open, slowly, agonizingly. And then, just as suddenly, the footsteps retreated. The door swung shut, leaving Mac in darkness once more. He checked the house, empty. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, or that the clock was somehow connected to the footsteps and the growing dread. The footsteps became a nightly occurrence, always approaching, always stopping outside his door, always retreating into silence. Mac's sleep became plagued by nightmares, visions of shadowy figures with glowing eyes, of the clock face morphing into a grinning skull, of being trapped within the mansion's walls as time itself crumbled around him. He began to see things in the shadows, fleeting glimpses of movement at the edge of his vision. The feeling of being watched intensified, became a suffocating presence that clung to him like a shroud. The mansion, once a sanctuary, had become a prison. The only constant was the clock, its hands frozen at 3 o'clock. One night, as Mac sat huddled by the fireplace, he felt a cold breath on the back of his neck. He spun around, heart hammering, but there was nothing there. As he turned back, he noticed something he hadn't seen before. A faint inscription etched into the stone mantelpiece. "Beware the hour of the raven." The inscription sent a chill down Mac's spine. He became obsessed with deciphering its meaning. He searched the library for any mention of ravens, of the hour of the raven, of any connection to the clock or the mansion's history. Ravens, he learned, were often seen as harbingers of death, of bad luck, of ill omens. But what did it mean? The hour of the raven. He became increasingly withdrawn, his days and nights blurring into an unending cycle of fear and paranoia. The mansion, with its oppressive silence and lurking shadows, seemed to close in on him. His only solace was the grand old grandfather clock, its face a beacon in the gathering darkness. The mansion was never truly silent. There were always creaks and groans, the sounds of a house settling after years of neglect, but now the sounds seemed different, louder, closer, more menacing. The footsteps continued, their rhythm becoming increasingly erratic, as if the unseen presence pacing outside his door was growing impatient. Whispers followed him through the empty halls, soft and sibilant, uttering his name. The shadows deepened, taking on strange, almost human shapes that danced at the edge of his vision. He began to smell things that weren't there, the cloying scent of decay, the metallic tang of blood. His reflection in the dusty mirrors no longer seemed to be his own. The face that stared back at him was gaunt, hollow-eyed, framed by a wild mane of unkempt hair. The eyes, however, were what disturbed him the most. They were filled with a terror so profound, so primal, that it sent chills down his spine. He was losing his mind. And yet a part of him clung to the belief that it was the mansion, the clock, the unseen presence that haunted its halls that was driving him mad. One night, in a fit of desperation, Mac decided to open the clock. He had to know what secrets it held, what connection it had to the horrors that plagued him. He worked feverishly, his hands trembling. As the back panel finally gave way, a cloud of dust erupted from within. Amongst the gears and cogs, Mac discovered a hidden compartment. Inside lay a small, leather-bound journal. The journal's pages were filled with spidery handwriting. The ink faded with time. The journal belonged to the mansion's original owner, Elias Ravenwood. Elias, like Mac, had become obsessed with the grandfather clock, convinced it held the key to forbidden knowledge, but his obsession had consumed him, driven him to madness and ultimately to a gruesome end. Elias had delved into dark arts, performed forbidden rituals in an attempt to harness the clock's power. He had succeeded, he claimed, but at a terrible cost, unleashing something evil tethered to the clock, craving not only his sanity, but his very soul. The journal ended abruptly, leaving Mac with more questions than answers. He now understood that the clock was cursed, haunted by the tormented spirit of Elias Ravenwood. He glanced up at the clock face. It was 2:59 a.m. The hands, frozen for so long, began to move. They ticked forward, slowly, deliberately, until they reached their appointed destination, 3:00 a.m. The clock chimed, echoing through the mansion like the tolling of a funeral bell. The air grew heavy, oppressive, charged with a malevolent energy. He stumbled back, fear gripping him like a vice. The room began to distort, the shadows twisting into grotesque shapes. He was paralyzed, helpless, as a cold, unseen force enveloped him, dragging him down into the darkness. The last thing he saw was the clock face. The hands were no longer frozen. They now bore a new name, Elias Ravenwood. The old grandfather clock stood silent now, its pendulum swinging rhythmically back and forth, marking the passage of time. The only sound in the mansion was the soft tick-tock of the clock, a constant, steady rhythm that echoed through the empty halls. The dust motes danced in the pale moonlight that streamed through the grimy windows, illuminating the clock face. 3:01 a.m. The clock was no longer broken. It was whole, and it was waiting. What would you do with a haunted clock? Can time trap souls? Was Mac cursed or mad? The clock ticked on, a testament to the enduring nature of time and the horrors that lie hidden beneath its surface.